before I get this started, I apologize. I'm feeling a little off today with some stuff that's going on, and I'm not in my usual studio room for this recording, so if that reflects the audio quality of this video, my bad. Now, getting past all that, it's great to be able to play the classic Doom games not only on current systems, but on handhelds. Of course, the Switch version of Doom Eternal being delayed to an unknown date is a bit of a bummer, but we did get a new Doom game. The pre-order bonus for Eternal, and a game that's never been ported to new systems since its release back in 1997. Here is my review of Doom 64 for the Nintendo Switch. The story of Doom 64 takes place after Doom 2 and, depending on who you ask, after Final Doom as well. After being decommissioned from fighting the Legions of Hell, the Doom Marine is brought back in when a Mother Demon appears, resurrecting the entire demonic army. So he ventures off to take on the forces of Hell once again and put a stop to that Mother Demon. Now, unfortunately, the story is probably the weakest part of Doom 64. The first two games of the series had regular story updates when you beat every so many levels, but in 64, the only story scene you get is after you clear the entire game. But there is a bright side to this, and that is the Lost Levels campaign, a new chapter introduced in this re-release that takes place after Doom 64 and connects the classic games with the new games Doom 2016 and Eternal. This is extremely interesting. After all, there have been tons of fan theories being thrown around ever since Doom 2016 came out, with people reading the codex entries and seeing subtle little hints that suggest that all of the games of the series are connected. When it comes to gameplay, Doom 64 is a first-person shooting game with emphasis on exploration and fast-paced shooting. This quote-unquote remastered version of the game has enhancements the original didn't have. First of all, the Doom 93 and Doom 2 Bethesda.net situation is not happening here. If you recall, when those games first launched, they required you to go online and log into your Bethesda.net account before they would allow you to play the game. This feature was of course patched out months later, and is not a thing in this game. You can boot up Doom 64 and play it offline from the get-go. No Bethesda.net account required. Now back to this being a remaster, there are some returning and new features here. The password system from the original is still around, letting you jump from level to level, as well as unlocking the features or cheat section of the menu that lets you turn on stuff like autofilling all weapons, giving all keys, filling up the map, or initiating God mode. Now, as far as entirely new features go, we've got the Lost Levels, the new campaign that bridges this game to Doom 2016. We've also got brightness and field of view settings that help the original game's problem of being much too dark. And finally, they added achievements and trophies when you fulfill certain tasks in the game. Now let's dive into game progression. 64 followed the same setup as the original two Doom games. You're put in a large level or map, and the goal is to fight through enemies and explore around to find key cards and open locked doors until you reach the exit. And this gameplay loop is really what makes the game. While technically it is the same song and dance from Doom, Doom 2, and Final Doom, there's a lot more emphasis here on the exploration and combat. The stages become complex mazes you've got to memorize very early in the game, and the enemy setup with hordes of enemies spawning in and the size of those hordes makes it one of the more difficult classic Doom experiences. Though not everything was copy-paste from Doom and Doom 2. 64 added a new weapon called the Unmaker, and its big thing was the fact that it could be upgraded as you progress through the game. Now, weapon upgrades is a very common thing in first-person shooters nowadays, but 23 years ago, not nearly as common. Now let's get into content and length, and you're going to get a lot of it because this game doesn't cost very much. Even without pre-ordering Doom Eternal, 64 only costs about $5 and gives you 28 stages from the original campaign along with 7 new ones for the Lost Levels. Completing all of these can easily take you a good 8 to 10 hours, giving you tons of content for the $5 you just spent. Now let's dive into presentation. Visually, the game looks pretty good with the upscaling that was done to it. It's got optional filtering and anti-aliasing options you can take advantage of, but I think the filter is neat but not required. To be perfectly honest, when I turned the smoothing filter off, I think the game actually looked a lot better without that slight blur. And performance is great, running at a nice buttery smooth 60 frames per second from start to finish, something Dooms 1 and 2 on the Switch didn't get until a patch later on. I have nothing else to say about performance, so let's go right into battery life. On the original model, Doom 64 has a battery range of 4 hours and 5 minutes up to 5 hours and 14 minutes. On the Nintendo Switch Lite, it has a range of 4 hours and 34 minutes up to 6 hours and 33 minutes. And on the V2 or Redbox 2019 model, it has a range of 6 hours and 24 minutes up to 8 hours and 41 minutes. In conclusion, Doom 64 adds to the Switch's growing collection of Doom games. Now on the downside, the game's got very little when it comes to story scenes between levels, but it's still a fun, fast-paced shooting game, and the new chapter bridging the entire series together is a great bonus added in. Reviews to Go rates Doom 64 for the Nintendo Switch on 8.5 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thanks for watching and have a great day.